Hello everyone, today we have Rose Mcgowan with us. She is a director, actor, writer and an activist, and she has inspired thousands of women to talk about what they go through and help us all face our problems as women. Hi Rose, welcome to HDLS.
Hello, thank you.
Let me start off with, you have given voice to so many women right now, and how do you think women need to gather courage, strength to come out and talk about this, something so personal, something so intimate?
That is the hardest thing. It is so deeply personal, and that's one of the things when I speak about my own pain in a way that's, I think it's important. It's okay. It is a deep pain, and it is something that people need to understand, though. There's a famous book, The Scarlet Letter, right? And there was a woman in the book who was made to wear a scarlet letter in shame. But I say that the scarlet letter is not ours. The scarlet letter is theirs, so I give it back. This is you. And I like to think I am the voice that just shows other women it's their voice. It's their voice. I feel like I have other women's voices coming out of my mouth, in a way. It's not that I speak for all of them, but I do speak for the hurt. And I know that's an awful lot of us.
That's true. And so about the Me Too campaign. So, I mean, it just did not create ripples in America or in Hollywood, but it spread all across the world. And everybody, including me and my friends, and a lot of us have come out and spoken about this. This was a campaign that changed a lot of us. So how do you think, this campaign has affected you? Have people gotten back to you after this?
Oh, yes. The amount of... It's intense. I go on Twitter or people come up to me and they tell me very intense... Our stories are intense. These are life-changing events. It's like, this history and then this history, and there's a line in between. And it's a lot to bear, but I can bear it. And for them, I'm so proud of the more it's talked about, the less they can hide what they do and the methods with which they do it. And it's also really important to know that it isn't just women. It isn't just women, but it is predominantly women.
Predominantly. And how do you think social media has played social media, I'm sure, has played an important role. Yeah, how do you think it's affected the entire situation?
I think what's so great about social media is that it no longer gives traditional media the choice of what to cover. They are following that story, not the public following a media story. So it can't be really self-serving. And at times, believe me, the internet is, as we know, there's a lot of things going on there. But it's so important to be able to cut through. And I realized, when you're verified, say on Twitter, when you say something, this is why I joined Twitter, it goes immediately to the news organizations. So I used it to speak to the media. I was speaking to people, but also very much to the media. And I followed Hindustan Times. I've been following all these different people for the last few years, so that they, when the story finally came out, would be open to receiving it. And understanding that this is a train that has left the station. There's nothing they can do to put it back in. And isn't that great? Because you know what? We're going to be a freer, better society. We will have less pain. We will have more output. I mean, this is the Leadership Summit, the irreversible rise of India, right? And the irreversible rise of India and other nations are completely tied to the success of women and girls. Because who doesn't want more money? I mean, and safety. It's just, I am a sovereign being. How do I not get to exist as a whole person like you do? I was telling the story recently. I saw these two dogs in the forest, and they were running and they were playing, and I thought they were so strange, and I couldn't figure out what it was that was making me feel weird about them. And I realized, because I'd only done animal rescue, I'd never met dogs that hadn't been abused. And I feel like that is so many girls and women, that we don't get to be those dogs that are just running and playing and being free. And that is where the crime is.
So when we talk about social media, there's a lot of support that person, but there's also a lot of flack. How do you think women should handle that? Because if somebody's coming out on social media and telling about their experiences, they also get a lot of hate for it. I mean, how do you deal with that?
You know, it's kind of built. I was because the person who attacked me owned so much of the media and had so many people like all over the world on his payroll. I'm used to being hated. And to what I would say to women and men, anybody, it's okay if someone doesn't like you. You're not going to, okay. I had to finally be like, if they're going to hate me, I'm going to give them a reason. It is very difficult when you see things, especially I get a lot of women that say, you know, women can be just as sexist, just as backwards, just as brainwashed. You know, they don't get a pass. And in fact, they certainly help out a lot in this situation by shaming, by making it that woman's fault or, you know, the victim's fault. And they are at fault in doing that. I think we need to get to a place where not everybody's going to like us, and that's okay. Women are taught from zero to be polite, to be pleasant, to be pleasing. No, don't want to. I don't want to be pleasant all the time because sometimes life is unpleasant. Other times it's very pleasant. I would like to be able to have the full human spectrum of emotion, and I think every girl can. And I think people that are online that see somebody sharing their deepest pain, be respectful. If you can't say something nice, leave it, but don't, you know, why didn't you talk before? Why did you wear that? It's all the same thing, and it's shame. And that's what, as a society, we need to just light on fire and throw away.
So this is a movement that's happening for women, by women. But there are men, there are men who want to support and add their voice. But how do men do this without overshadowing the movement? Without sabotaging what the actual cause is?
Well, I think they need to, you know, one of the things I say to men, straight and gay and anybody, is if you hear somebody or your friend saying something about a woman that isn't quite right, stop them. I turn to people and I just say, why? Why would you say that? And I smile, why would you say that? And wait for them to answer and think about it. And then, okay, bye. They have to think about it. What I would say is, I don't know so much about them trying to co-opt this. People probably try to profit off of it. I would simply say, teach your sons that they own no woman. Because there are many, many great men that are like, I have a daughter, I want no rape. I'm like, so if you have a son, that means you do want rape? That makes absolutely no sense. We should want a world where 50% of the population is not walking around with massive scars on the inside. Because that's what slows us down.
How do women come out about things that are happening to them and also maintain a professional balance? Like, women are constantly scared about what's going to happen to their career.
Yeah.
And what are people going to think about that? And what do you tell the women there?
Blow it up. It's very hard. It's very easy to say, you know, I had to wait a long time. I had to work really, really hard to, in spite of every odd against me and someone trying to crush me, going around the system. What would I say? I would say I send you my love and my strength, and to not be afraid. And when you are brave, it doesn't mean bad things don't happen to you. It doesn't mean your feelings don't get hurt, and it doesn't mean you're not often alone. But I think knowing inside that you are in the right is at least some comfort.
Can you please tell us a little more about your Rose Army? I mean, that's inspiring, but what is it all about?
It's really a way of thinking. So I started using the hashtag Rose Army about 2.5 years ago. And what that was just, I just wanted to kind of know, are there other people out there who think differently? I know there are. I've met them. Where are you in the Twitter sphere, in Facebook, and Instagram? Where are you? Who are you? And all it is, the only requirement is just thinking differently. That's it. Just look at something a little bit more critically. I noticed, there's something called lobbying in Washington. That's, a lot of the corporations, they all have lobbyists, and they make the government, they buy them off. And I kind of thought, well, there's no lobbyist for critical thinking. There's no lobbyist for being brave. So what if I can do that with a public platform? I realized that if I have more followers than, say, the head of Congress, which I do, then am I not a publicly elected official? Why can I not, kind of, without someone buying me off? I'm their biggest nightmare. So Rose Army is really also tactically what it's evolving into is like a flash mob for justice. If people can gather together in a street at 4:30 and start dancing, why can't we find somebody who's doing wrong and exert pressure systemically, like a corporation, I mean, or not so much an individual person, but a corporation that's supporting somebody bad, right, with the bad apples. Because everybody goes to work and there's that one guy or that one woman. If they were just not here, everything would be so much better for everybody. Get them out.
And can you tell us a little more about your book that's coming up, Brave?
Brave is the only name that came to me for that book, and it was my father's nickname for me, but I wasn't allowed to find it out until after he died. He told my sisters not to tell me, but his nickname for me was the Brave One. And when I was 10, he gave me a birthday card, and it said, "Dear Rose, I've always admired your sense of justice. Happy birthday." And that, to me, is the origin of the book is very much about bravery. I also realized that people don't get taught that. They don't get taught that is worth something, that picking up that shield and fighting forward, that's worth something. And a lot of people, in America, there's this thing they put on the back of their car, a bumper sticker, and it says, "No fear." Why? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Being brave, you are afraid. You're very afraid. You just do it anyway. And each time you do it, you get bigger. And each time you do it, things get less scary. So I had to do it so many times I could take on the world. But I became very, very, kind of a monster that way, in a good way. My book really, I grew up in an unorthodox way in what a lot of people call a cult. But see, I always see cults all over the place. People that vote for Trump, cult. People that do this, cult. People that watch the Kardashians obsessively, cult. It's all interrelated, and I understand it because I understand that language. So my book is actually comparing the cult I grew up in to the cult of Hollywood and how it might be affecting your brain in ways that you're not aware of. And then interwoven through that are lessons in bravery, basically.
So from an actor, being an it girl in Hollywood, to being a director, to being a writer, and now an activist, a voice for women, how has the transition been for you personally?
It's been great. I honestly, and I've said it before, and I hated being an actress. I'm very open, but for me, it was a job. It wasn't my life's passion. It was something I happened to be good at. And once I fell into it, and then I got famous very quickly. And then what other job are you going to get? Where are you going to go? You're actually trapped. And fame is a very, it's like living in a tiny town where everyone's pointing and, they didn't go to church that day, or look at what they're wearing, but it's global. It's a global version of a tiny town, and I hated it. So what I did was dismantle it, and what it feels like now, it feels like freedom, and that feels great.
So you feel liberated now?
Completely. But I had to liberate myself.
You had to liberate yourself.
It took a lot. It took a lot to wake me up because I spent 20 years being other people.
So you said the time wasn't right. Do you think the time is right now for you to come out and create the stir?
Yes, absolutely. The time is right. So many things had to happen for it to be right, but I started working on these stories with the New York Times 9 months ago. I started with them before. I asked them, and I said, this is a very big story. It's a lot bigger than you can imagine. It's going to be really, really big. Can you do this? And they said yes. And I think it's so important to use whatever kind of voice or power you have as an activist or as anything just to push society forward.
So when people bring up that part of your life, when you're talking about some real issues here, how do you handle that? How do you tell people to just back off?
I think I just say back off. No, it's, the it girl in Hollywood, that whole thing was so strange because it's like you get sold as something you're not, or at least I wasn't. And I remember at the height of fame, doing an interview, and they were talking about it girl and and I was on my hands and knees scrubbing my floor in my kitchen at the same time I was doing the interview. So that's basically how I always thought of it. I was like, yeah, I'm just here scrubbing my floor. I need to clean my floor too. So I don't know about that stuff. It is what it is. It's actually lessened a lot. I think, I had to kind of deconstruct fame and break it down and light it on fire.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Rose. It was very nice
talking to you.